Hi, this is Sally Flashberger with the Wisconsin Board for People with Developmental Disabilities. It's another Living Well Wednesday. Thanks for joining us. We're here on Facebook Live and also Zoom. We're excited today to be talking about the dignity of risk. So we're going to have some great people joining us. We're going to walk through what the dignity of risk is. We're going to watch a video, hear from our self-advocates and one of our providers on dignity of risk. So sit back and relax. If you have any questions, you can post them in the chat on Zoom or also in the comments on our Facebook page. So thanks a lot, and I'm going to turn it over to Shannon to start talking about dignity of risk.
Hi everybody, Shannon Webb with In Control Wisconsin. I work with Sally on the Living Well project and all the self-advocate leaders that you'll hear from in just a little bit. So the dignity of risk is a concept that gained recognition in the independent living movement for people with disabilities back in the 1960s and 70s. And really what it is it's a fundamental concept of a life concept that we all people with disabilities should be afforded the opportunity to take risks just like anyone else, because it's in taking reasonable risks, perhaps failing, trying new things, learning from our mistakes, that we develop who we are. It's actually how we develop as people. How we build self-esteem, how we build our character, and everything we can be. And without taking those risks, without trying new things, we and challenging ourselves or getting outside of our comfort zone, as people say, we will never learn and grow to our full potential. So, people with disabilities, self-advocates, really, promote this concept, hand in hand with self-determination, right? Because they should have the same fundamental right to take reasonable risks like everyone else. And so on the flip side of that is this concept that's, about, overprotective caregivers, or what's called the duty of care, where, because people, family or service providers are concerned about the consequences of of the risks people may take, they become overprotective. And that's not a good thing. Again, it makes it so that people with disabilities don't learn and grow to their full potential. So, families and service providers really need to learn more and embrace more about the dignity of risk and supporting people to take risks and make informed decisions in their lives. And so finding a balance between, not assuming that it's the responsibility of the family or the agency if something happens to the person, but the person is their own agent and is responsible for their own own behavior and own, consequences of the things that they do. And that really means that we have to, support people to learn, to explore, to process through, life's choices in order to find what's right for them. So, agencies and families can find a balance by, including people with disabilities in their own life planning, right? So that concept of nothing about me without me. And so that's why we see tools like supported decision-making, in lieu of guardianship, that allows people that opportunity to make decisions for themselves with supports, recognizing that, they may need some extra assistance in order to learn about what that option means for them. So, and then also agencies, when it comes to making policies, really should be involving self-advocates and people with disabilities in that policy making, so that they get input about what's reasonable and what's, to avoid overprotective measures and whatnot. So the dignity of risk, it's a fundamental right for all of us, no matter if you have a disability or not. Years ago, there was this book that I just loved, and if you like audiobooks, it's on audio. It's called Crashing Through, and it's the story of a gentleman with disabilities whose, parents really, kind of pushed him out there to take risks in his life. And he ended up becoming, you know, one of the first CIA agents with a disability. He's, you know, an excellent skier, was in the Olympics, and, you know, so he achieved things in his life because his parents really did support the dignity of risk with him. So I'm excited to hear what the self-advocates have to say when we, you know, and watch their video. So I'll give it back to Sally to introduce the video.
All right, that's great. I'm going to turn it over to Caitlin. She's going to show the video.
Welcome to the Self-Determination Channel.
Today we are going to talk about your rights to make choices and take risks.
A risk is when you do something when you're not sure what might happen.
Everyone has the right to make choices about how they live their lives and the things they do. This is called self-determination.
Even if people get help to make decisions, or if they have a guardian, they have the right to be heard and to make their own decisions.
Making decisions, big decisions and small decisions, comes with risk. These can be big or small risks.
People with disabilities have the same rights as everyone to take risks.
This right is called dignity of risk.
We should be able to stay home alone.
Choose our friends.
Stay out late.
Learn to drive.
Move into an apartment, just like everyone else.
Sometimes family members and service providers who care about you might tell you that you can't do something because they want to keep you safe and protected. If this happens to you and you don't like it, here is what you can do to protect your rights, to make choices and take risks.
Speak up. Tell the person what you want and why.
Ask why they are telling you not to try something. Keep asking questions until you understand why it is happening.
Tell the person you want to make a plan. Get support to learn to do what you want. Good self-advocates make informed decisions. Making an informed decision means finding out all your options and picking the one that is best for you.
Set your goals and work on them. You can get support to work towards your goals. Work hard and be patient, and you will get there.
If you ask for help and people don't help you, or if they're stopping you from doing what you want to do, you can call Disability Rights Wisconsin and get advice.
People with disabilities need to try new things. This is how we learn about ourselves and what we want in life.
Trying new things means taking some risk and making mistakes. If we are held back, we will not be happy and we will not become the best people we can be. To find out about your rights to make choices and take risks, check out the information below.
Thanks for watching the Self-Determination Channel. If you liked this episode, please subscribe. Bye!
All right, that was excellent. We're so excited that we have several of our stars from the self-determination video here today to actually talk about some of their experiences taking risks and how those things turned out for them. So I'm going to turn it over to Nathaniel to talk about some of his experience.
Good morning, everyone. Today I would like to talk about my college experience about risk. So when I was going to college, learn how to succeed through failure. I first went to college at MATC. I didn't know I didn't have the right accommodations and didn't advocate for myself as well. I got kicked out of MATC. I could have just stopped trying, but instead I went to a different college. I went to UW-Whitewater and learned how to advocate and get the right accommodations. I eventually earned my bachelor's degree to that effect.
That's great. I think it's great that you kept trying, right? You could have stopped but you just kept moving forward and eventually were successful, right?
Yes, I just persevered. I went through different tutors. If I wasn't able to understand a tutor, I would go to my key contact person in the Center for Students with Disabilities department. And then she would able to get set up another tutor for me. So, and then I was able to figure out what was really going on. So like TBI, traumatic brain injury. So we actually, okay, you had a traumatic brain injury. So we actually wrote out not rules, but different steps. So tutors were able to tutor me in a different way. So I was able to get the materials. So what I would do is I would have questions written down, to bring to my tutor. And then have my work done. And then bring them to my professor too. And because of that, I was able to have a successful college career. Because of that, most tutors, they were easy to work with me. Because some of the tutors told me that it was very stressful to work with the tuties, because I was a tutie. Because most of the tuties, I don't want to say most, but some of the tuties were not prepared as I was. And it seemed like they would have to walk. And because I was so diligent and so proactive, and I was able to get to where I wanted to be and on my bachelor's degree in the end.
That's great. It sounds like you learned a lot about yourself and what you needed, but then you also taught all the other people how they could help you be successful. So that's excellent. That's a great example of taking those risks and moving forward. All right, Ashley, you're up next. So Ashley's going to share some of the risks she's taken.
So as a person with a disability, I've had a problem with boundaries, which boundaries are basically like limitations on how you can be like friend with people and stuff like that. So what ended up happening was I was helping someone so much that what they ended up being is reliant on me and almost like saying, oh, if you're not going to do this, I'm going to be mad or I'm going to be sad. So what I'm saying is that people with disabilities get attached to certain people, but if and they don't understand that there needs to be boundaries and stuff like that. And I was having people tell me, oh, that's not the right thing to do, but I wasn't listening because in order to be a person with a disability, you have to learn. And now I'm able to tell other people when they're making that same mistake, not to do that same mistake, because I learned from your mistake. If you keep people with disabilities in a box, which is like locked up, they will not be able to mature, and they won't be able to be the best person they can be, and they won't able to become, you know, a good advocate and become. So I always use this as an example when I'm speaking. I always say, if you bring your husband dinner every night, what is he going to expect? Dinner every night. So here's another example. My mom, as I would say in my speeches, if you guys have seen my speeches, is what you call a helicopter mom. And she's like, oh, Ashley, I don't know if you can do this or do that. So one night I'm like, Mom, I'm 24 years old and I can stay home alone. So what ended up happening was I stayed for 4 hours by myself, and I said, Mom, and then she came home and I said, Mom, did anything happen to me? She said, no. I said, yeah. So we're going to have to keep slowly progressing till I can move out on my own. I'm not saying I'm going to bother her every month, but I'm saying maybe every 3 months. So that's my story.
Well, that goes back to the make a plan, right? So it's sometimes, you know, like if you want to move out, right, Ashley, it maybe isn't like I just go move out, you know, pack up my things and go, right? But it's like make a plan so that you can get there, right?
Well, it's also kind of, Catherine always says this story about how she didn't want me to go to Jumpstart, and she almost made my mom cry because she didn't want me to go to Jumpstart. But you have to kind of slowly, it's called like moving in, I forgot what it's called, but you have to like move in steps with your with people, because sometimes they're not ready for an idea or they're not ready for it. And you don't want to push them to extreme stress point where they're actually get themselves mentally sick, but you also want to have your voice heard. So it's a matter of being patient with them and saying, okay, well, I brought it up this month. Okay, maybe I'll lay off about 2 other months and then bring it up again. But it means that I'm not going to let off of the topic, but it means that I'm not going to push my mom to an extreme breaking point. That's what it means. It being respectful of your mom that way.
Yep, that's great. And I think it, again, the situation with the boundaries, you had to learn for yourself. People can tell other people, their own experiences, but until you actually experience that yourself, you might not learn. So, I think that's a great example of how, you learned yourself, and now you're able to set boundaries with your friends and feel like it's a good relationship. Thank you, Ashley. All right, we're going to turn it over to Emily. Emily's going to talk a little bit about her experience. Are you there, Emily?
Yeah, I can't find my video on the other. There I am.
Your video's on. You're all set. I can see you.
There we go. Okay. So my name's Emily. I'm in Madison, Wisconsin. I always say what I want and do what everybody else does. I have always been like this. I don't limit myself. In boarding school and LD school, I decided to join the cheer squad to fit in. I was cheering for one of the guys, and he went for a three-pointer, and then I got hit in the head with the basketball. So that was definitely a self-esteem buster there. I went to the Cutting Edge program at Edgewood College in Madison, Wisconsin from 2008 to 2010. I wanted to be a part of college. I lived on campus for one semester. I didn't understand why the non-cutting edge students behaved the way they did. They stayed up late, making a lot of noise. I learned that I don't like to live in that type of setting with a lot of people.
That's great. I think, I thought when we talked about this yesterday, it was interesting to hear you talk about the college setting, and, like that was something you really were interested in doing. And you said you were one of the early classes at Cutting Edge. But I think it's interesting because I think a lot of us learn from that kind of living in big groups and things like that. But you realize that was maybe not the best situation. And you also talked about a little bit, you live in your own apartment now, is that correct?
Yep.
Yeah, and that was like, you know, you kind of learned from that situation and took the opportunity to plan and move into your own apartment.
Yeah.
All right. All
Well, and
right.
some people might look at, you know, like if you choose to go to college and you take that risk and then it doesn't work out, you know, for any reason, that's not necessarily a failure if you've learned,
No.
if you go down a different path,
You,
right?
well,
You may
see,
find that you want to change your direction. Mm-hmm.
yeah, and see, I think going to college, you learn the life skills. You learn the boundaries. You learn friendships. You learn sexual. I mean, you learn everything about life. You do because you come up with you come up with. I can't believe how many experiences that I have come up with that I felt uncomfortable, and I've come up with experiences that I have felt very comfortable with, and it's just an enjoyable experience, and I would never have traded any day of Whitewater. Um, I loved UW Whitewater, and if it wasn't for UW Whitewater, I would not have had a bachelor's degree.
Yeah. There's a saying that says nothing grows in the comfort zone.
Exactly. Yeah,
Well, and I
and
think
I
we,
speak. Go ahead.
no, go ahead.
No, I think that no, I think that I have to be pushed to feel uncomfortable to learn about myself, but not as uncomfortable that I'm not going to be severely.
Right.
But
Reasonable
you have
risks.
to be pushed to a certain extent that you can learn from that lesson, or you can learn from that experience.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and we talked about that quite a bit yesterday, and I think when we were prepping, you know, I think the thing is that you only learn, you know, by having those opportunities. And even myself as a parent, you know, trying to think from early on that those are the expectations for all of my kids, whether my child had a disability or not. So making sure that we have those same expectations,
My
I
dad,
think is
my dad's favorite, one of my dad's favorite sayings to my mom says, "Gene, let him grow up. He's going to get hurt, but he has to grow up."
that very wise words there. All right, I'm gonna turn it over to Christy. She's gonna talk about her experience with risk.
My biggest experience with taking a risk was when I decided to move out. And that process probably took about 6 months or so. It was very big learning experience. And like I had found out after I moved out that my dad was under the impression that I would never move out of my parents' house. That I would just live there forever. They would build on whatever accommodations they needed to. Yeah, and that would just be there. But I proved everybody wrong. And I've now been successfully living on my own for just about 6 years. So I've come a long way, and I've learned one of the biggest things I've learned is who to hire as your caregiver and who not to. Because I've had a lot of experiences with that.
Yeah, that's a pretty important, you know, I mean, that's a pretty risky situation when you're trying to make those decisions about who's there to support you. You know, I think that, you know, again, I think too, what we were talking about before, it took you 6 months to make that plan and making sure you had all the resources in place before you moved out.
Right.
We did have a question, and on the Facebook, I can see it was, what supports are available in Wisconsin to help people with disabilities to learn these tools? And so I do think our long-term care system is set up to help people become independent. While our long-term care system provides those supports, you know, the goal is for people to become independent, even with supports. I mean, just because someone needs long-term care and maybe needs some level of support doesn't mean they aren't considered independent or want to be independent. And we have, and we'll be having one of our providers for on our Living Well grant talk in just a minute. But there are lots of providers out there who are doing great work for people with disabilities, helping them learn how to live in the community, work in the community, and really creating plans and person-centered plans to be sure that the person is making those decisions about what's important in their life and how they want to achieve those goals. Shannon, do you have anything to add, or do you think
I would just that, yeah, I agree with you. There's definitely services and supports in the long-term care system, whether that be the children's long-term care system or the adult long-term care system. So asking for things that, you know, services that are in the children's system, like mentoring, you know, or using the words like, I want to build skills, skill building, you know, independent living skills, that kind of thing. You know, when you talk to your care managers, case managers, or whatnot, and they can, you know, help put that on a plan if your goal is to, you know, gain more independence at home, in the community, or in an apartment on your own, or at work even too. So and that schools also play a big role in skills for independence, and those transition years are very critical. So if there's any families or younger self-advocates on the line, you know, that's, or, you know, school staff, obviously, that's, you know, starting at age 14 in Wisconsin, we start to focus on post-school goals. And so that includes, you know, employment. It can include going to college like Nathaniel and Emily did. It can include moving out of your family home and building those independent living skills. So, you know, there's those things should start in high school, and, you know, go through the transition years, you know, if you choose to stay until you're 21. So aligning all of those different services is really important, and having team meetings. If you have big goals, to move out, to get a job, you know, to do, you know, really great, awesome things in your life, it's going to be really important for you to pull together your whole team of people to say, this is what I want to do. How do I get there? What services can help me? And, you know, make a plan. Mm-hmm.
That's great, thanks. So now I'm gonna turn it over to Heather. She is one of the providers in our Living Well program, and she's gonna talk just a little bit about, from the provider perspective, how to really help people with this kind of concept of dignity of risk. Heather, are you there?
I am, thank you, Sally. So with being one of the providers, our main goal is, you know, to help individuals with disabilities become as independent as much as they possibly can. So basically, what I normally would do is I would come in with an assessment to kind of see where somebody's at with their abilities, or and then we would talk about, you know, their goals, the things they need to work on to be as independent in a successful manner. I know sometimes family support and guardians and things like that, they have their own opinions. So what I like to do is I like to make sure that the individual is, the client, I would say, is as involved in the process as somebody else would be, just because they have a guardian or a helicopter mom, as they like to say, or another family member that's the same way, who's afraid to let go of some of that. I try to, we all get together, but I try to make them understand that, you know, we have to look at this person as a person and that they can make their own choices. So what we do is we just set up some supports to help them, you know, if it's having to learn what their boundaries are, to take risks, to push themselves, to learn that they can do a lot of things on their own, to self-advocate. We do have some people that aren't good self-advocates for themselves, so we have to put supports in place to help them learn how to do the self-advocacy, whether that is to a family member or just out in the community if they have a job, or living in an apartment building and talking to others if they need to about issues. It's such a wide range of things that we try to touch on. For instance, like an example would be, we have a client now that came out of the child care system and she's now 18. She still lives on her own, with her parents. Her goal is to maybe go to a college that has a program for someone with disabilities. The problem we're having right now is she can self-advocate to an extent, but mom and dad and grandma that lives across the street too, they've been so much involved in trying to make her life easier that they just started to do for her instead of kind of guiding her and showing her how to do them for herself. So we're kind of in the process now of, you know, pushing her a little bit and showing her how independent she can be without them. And then at the same time, showing families she can do this. You guys can take a step back, you know, with our support in place, she's able to do these things that they didn't think she could do. So that's kind of where we're at right now with her. I don't know, does anybody have any questions about any of that?
No, I think what you said is, you know, again, the planning, and that you're really looking at the person-centered plan, you know, and thinking about what the person wants, and, you know, and doing that kind of maybe that skills assessment to even show them what they can do, but then know what areas you need to focus on to work with them to help them achieve the goal. You know, I think that's what's so important.
Yeah, those person-centered plans they're really important, I think, because everybody's is so individually different, and you can really hone in on these skills that they need to work on, and ones that, you know, you can even highlight ones that they're great with, you know, so that's a really important tool to have available to work from.
Yeah, I think I think it was essential lifestyle planning, or one of the, you know, person-centered planning methods. There's a framework for having a discussion about what's important to the person and what's important for the person, right? So you can balance the, you know, what a person really wants and, you know, what they need in their life. And then also, you know, what safeguards may, you know, or supports may need to be put in place just to ensure that the person is safe. Because I think, again, it goes back to that balancing the duty of care with the dignity of risk. And, you know, how do you support someone to take reasonable risks and try new things and, you know, put themselves out there, get a little out of their comfort zone, maybe make some mistakes, but then what are you doing to help the person along that path?
Yeah, so
and Heather, go ahead.
Go ahead, Sally.
No, I was just going to say, you know, I think we did talk about that yesterday, like how you guys maybe help people plan when maybe they it isn't safe yet. So maybe talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so I mean, we do try to have that balance between choice and safety. Like for an example, we had a girl who was self-capping herself, and then we come to find out that she's not doing it properly. So we kind of had to take a step back, and we want her to do it herself, but we had to give her the tools and teach her, you know, that you should be washing your hands completely beforehand in a certain way. Like just like everyone's learning now with COVID, you know, you have to take those So safety measures, so we kind of had to reteach her how to do all of these things. And I think part of the problem was that everybody was doing it for her for so long, thinking, oh, she's going to struggle, that the proper techniques weren't put in place. So we found out that we had to help her put those in place. And so we didn't do it for her. We just kind of stopped her in her process and said, hold on. And we made it a step-by-step list for her, like, this is step one, you need to do this, and then this and this before you can continue or even touch your equipment to make sure things are safe. So we didn't take that choice away from her, but we had to make sure that it was health and safety needs were met as well.
Yeah, that's a great example. And I think the important part is, like, you didn't take that choice away. You just said, let us help you or give you the support you need to be successful. So I think that's great. I don't see any other questions. Just wondering if anyone has any other comments before we kind of close up our Living Well Wednesday for this week. I don't see any. Next week we're going to be talking about a kids issue. We're going to be talking about special education next week. So we will be joined by someone from the Department of Public Instruction, an advocate from Disability Rights Wisconsin, and a parent. And we will be specifically focusing on special education during COVID. So it's a little bit different. We don't always talk about kids issues, but we thought it was really important during this time to give some resources to families and kids with disabilities. So join us next week, Wednesday, same time, same place at 11 o'clock. And on Zoom and Facebook Live. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we'll see you next week.